And press that one. And we're good. All right, episode 10. I've got Matt Fraser, a company director. Matt, do you want to say g'day and just give us a 1 minute explanation of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, g'day all, how are we going? So as Toby's just said, my name's Matt Fraser. I run Mattis Group. Involved in that is a couple of little sub-branches. So I've got a boxing and fitness or a martial arts and fitness centre that have recently taken over out in Wivenhoe, field fighting and fitness. I run a consultancy company around hospitality and business startups. I'm a chef, I'm a teacher, I'm an entrepreneur, and pretty heavily involved in a range of sports and sports clubs. So probably sums me up in a...
So you've done like a fair bit over here. You said that you've only, what have you been here now, like 9 years in Tassie?
9 years, yeah. So April, so this month now is 9 years for me in Tasmania. Grew up in Melbourne, spent most of my life in Melbourne. Grew up out in the southeast suburbs actually, so for anyone that's familiar with the Melbourne area, grew up out around Knox, and then spent some time down around the peninsula as well.
Yeah, cool. So what made you come out this way?
Married a Tasmanian, and after a number of years of I shouldn't use the term nagging, but it was decided that, you know, let's go have a look, let's start a new chapter. Probably similar to a lot of people that moved to Tassie. I came here with sort of a 2-year goal and thought, well, I'll settle for 2 years, try it out, something different, and pack up and try the next challenge. And 9 years later, I'm still here. I've got, you know, properties, businesses, family, kids at school, those sorts of things. So
life happened kind of thing, and there goes your 2-year plan.
Yeah, life happened. It happened pretty quick, actually. I was only here about 6 months when I brought my first business, which was a medical supplies and first aid training company out in Devonport. I actually sold off the medical supply company 2 years later, and it's still there, going quite well. I ran the training company for about 5 years before on selling that as well. So yeah, a number of people around the coast have probably attended first aid classes that I've done as well in the past. So that was another little string to the bow.
So when you left Melbourne, was you like being a chef over there, or did you have businesses, or what was you doing at the time you left?
When I left Melbourne, I'd actually been in international education. So I'd set up I'd helped establish hospitality training program for international and domestic students, which had been quite successful. So I'd had my own restaurant in the wine region of the Yarra Valley. I'd run a couple of catering companies. I'd managed a number of different organisations. And had moved into the education side.
So was that like online, or was that like brick and mortar?
Brick and mortar, yeah. So we were a pretty large multifaceted trade training centre. So we had hospitality, hairdressing, automotive, community services, business, English. There was a range of different programs. I started out with the responsibilities of establishing and developing our hospitality programs. We taught all the way through to an advanced diploma level. So, it was an eye-opening project to be involved in. Pretty intensive 3.5 years. And prior to that, I'd been with another startup college on a smaller scale for 3 years on Swanston Street in the city. And all that came about after I'd sold my own restaurant out in the valley.
So what did you prefer, being in the kitchen or being in the classroom?
Look, I love elements of both, to be honest. If it boils down, and I'm brutally honest, the main reason for the change was the hours and the commitment. It gave me time back with my family, gave me access back to my sporting endeavours, those sorts of things.
It's hard, isn't it? Because all that kind of stuff is overnight time after work, when you're actually just going to work.
That's it. And a lot of people don't sort of see the sacrifices that were made. You know, I was also young when I had kids, so my priority had to be on building a career and building a stable future for a family, not sort of gallivanting around and playing sport, partying up and just trying to make it from week to week. So, I'd given up some pretty promising avenues and pathways in sport to focus on my career.
Yeah. One good thing about it as well is when you have kids, though, especially when they're young, like you can spend all day with them before you go off to your restaurant of a night, kind of thing.
That's right.
But then as soon as they hit school, like you never see them.
That's it. You lose that, and that's sort of where, I guess for me, a big part of the reflection was upon selling the restaurant that I'd had, and I went into that with the idea of taking an establishment that had sat dormant for a couple of years and basically being able to make a statement that, well, I'll revamp this, I'll set it up, I'll create it to be a destination. It's good for my professional reputation. I'm a little bit of a believer of you got to put your money where your mouth is if you're going to spruik that you can do something. So there was that element, but it was also a financial element of gain, hopefully through growth of the business. As we all know, you don't make much in that initial stage, but it was a 12-month project. It was a really tough 12 months, but we managed to plod through. But yeah, a lot of hours, a lot of time away from the family.
So was it already an established restaurant, or was it an empty leasehold?
Empty leasehold. Nothing had been in there for about 2 years.
Yeah, right. So what was your main concept?
So we went for being a Yarra Valley-based business. So there was a couple of concepts behind it. Basically, from a winery perspective, we went and approached all the small makers. So if they had their own on-site dining, then I wouldn't touch them. So we basically tried to make a little co-op of the small wineries. We'll give you a dining outlet where you can promote your products. That'll be on our wine list. And I brought in several local artists and had local artwork on display for sale. So there was blown glass, there was glass work, there were paintings, abstract art, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, cool.
And then, from a food concept, really focusing on fresh local produce. I don't think I printed my first menu for about 4 or 5 months. It was all blackboard menus, and I changed them every day depending on what I'd picked up from markets. And
so was that
what I felt inspired to cook.
Was that the original plan to have a revolving menu, or did you just want to find out what worked in the area, or a bit of both?
No, part of the concept was I believe that you get the best out of the chef if you give them the freedom to do what they want to express. I'm useless at art, but I consider food to be my art. And that's where I believe that I have the ability to showcase emotion, flair, colour.
So was it the whole menu that changed each time, or did you have some staples on there?
Staples that stayed. They might get rotated out if for instance, I ran a duck dish that was quite popular. But if I went in and had a look at the duck breast that was available at the time and went, no, not quite what I'm after, I might can that for a few days until the next lot of produce was coming in and could inspect that. But primarily, most of the menu changed. There was probably 2 or 3 staples that were consistent until we went with our printed menus. And then, obviously, we tracked all of those sales records and feedback and that sort of stuff. And our first printed menu was quite limited with what we believed were the most popular classics. And we still ran our blackboard menus as well.
Yeah, cool. So how long was you in that actual restaurant for before you sold it?
I believe we were open for 10 months before I sold it. And I sold it to one of our regular customers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So were they a chef themselves, or they just like?
No, not a chef themselves, but had a hospitality background. So they'd been in more food and beverage management. And so that was him, and his partner was an artist. So they saw it as an ability to create basically a gallery for her to be able to display art as well as others. But additional to that, it was an opportunity for them to still be able to make a statement, because we were still pretty new at 10 months. We'd started taking our forward bookings for weddings in the Vines and stuff like that, but obviously people are booking that 12 months, 2 years in advance. So we were just starting to, show that profitability as well on the books.
So when you in the structure, was you like a head chef or restaurant manager, right? So
no, I ran the kitchen. So during service, I was in the kitchen. I'd had a glass window put in so that I could observe the bar and the dining room from the kitchen. funny story when it comes to front of house management staff. I think in the first month I'd gone through three different managers. So the first one I appointed didn't make it past the opening weekend. I was very specific about what I was looking for and what I needed to help, I guess, work with me on creating the vibe that I wanted within there, or the culture, or the ambience that I wanted. And yeah, unfortunately, that was sort of hard to come by.
So how did you go about? So I've gone through a fair few managers. How did you go about getting rid of them with no hard feelings, or was there hard feelings?
No, I was pretty blunt up front with the fact that for the first 2 weeks, I will watch every breath you take, every move you make. If I feel that you can fit into the direction that I want, well, then you're going to have 100% support from me. But I need to know that when I turn my back, I know that you're going to be doing what we've agreed to do. So I always utilised that and was able to basically sit down, do a performance review, and almost get them to admit that we hadn't hit targets that we were supposed to, and then say, so in my shoes, what would you do about this right now? And usually when they sat there and couldn't give you a response, you go, that's how I felt for the last 24 hours processing this. But unfortunately, I think going forward, we're probably better to take separate pathways.
Yep.
Thanks very much. I had one that spat it with me. I've left a job to come here, and I said, that was your choice. We did discuss it in depth. The other two absolutely knew where I was coming from, and that at that stage, as a 23-year-old, I had a fair bit of pressure on my shoulders as well to execute what I'd said I was going to execute. So I tried to be quite personable. I mean, I paid most of my staff for a month before we started to come in and do training sessions, just so that we could develop that rapport. And I guess I was probably pretty lucky that I managed to bring a couple of previous staff that had worked with me previously along for the ride, and they were great supports to me because they knew already
what you
my
needed,
expectations were, and where I liked to see or have that support. Everyone's got their weaknesses.
Yeah, cool. So was your aim for that to sell at the 12-month mark?
Yep. I didn't set a time frame. I didn't know how long it'd take, but I set out. The mission for me was basically to build something profitable. So once we'd reached a benchmark where I felt that it had commercial value to the outside, we were going to start exploring those options. I hadn't actually made footsteps to do so. I'd started to look at some valuations and things like that, but there'd been no listings. There'd been nothing like that done. Was having a glass of wine with a few of the regulars at the end of one of the nights, and one of them said, so, what are your plans for this place long term? And I said, long term, to sell it. And they sort of looked at me and went, oh, that's not what we expected. And we talked about the rationale behind why and those sorts of things. And one of them said, well, that's really interesting. I've always wanted to have my own restaurant in the valley. There's very limited opportunities. Let me know when you want to talk. And I said, well,
let's talk now.
The conversation's open whenever you want to start it. And that's where we went from.
Yep.
It's all done and dusted and agreed upon pretty quickly, I must admit. And I think from that initial conversation to within 45 days, I was out, didn't have anything left, and I'd done a handover, the whole lot.
That was similar to when I sold my shop. So how it came about, I was like, I'm thinking about selling, and one of my delivery drivers said, oh, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
I said, what? So how much do you want for it? And then anyway, I told him, and he goes, give me 2-3 days. And I think it was on like the 4th day he came in, he goes, yep, give me your bank details, I'll transfer it, and then it was done. So I think it was like 28 days, and I walked out. So it all happens pretty quick. And then I was actually shocked. I was like, fuck.
It can happen really quick. And then on other fronts, when I was looking at selling one of my businesses over here, I started to scratch my head and think, hang on, am I going to be able to? Because the perceived commercial value to the outer market is different to what it is for me. And it was a real tactical shift, actually, to be able to move that one on. And it was a very limited market to try and approach or market or create interest with.
Yep.
But yeah,
so
I think there's a real knack with business too, to be able to create something that somebody else wants.
when you sold your restaurant over there, what was your next steps? Like what did you do after that? Did you have some time off or jump straight back in the next one, or did you already have the next project underway?
So the discussions on going into teaching had already started. An ex-colleague of mine was heading up a project team starting a little boutique culinary school. He'd already been having those conversations. Then for me, when I sold up, I think a matter of days later, I was on a plane and up the Gold Coast. Sort of lived it up for a couple of weeks with some mates that were living up there. Bit of time to reset, decide what I wanted to do. When I came back, I actually took an offer to go back almost in a consultancy role for 4 months was the agreed term in the end, and try and get back on track a restaurant group that I'd worked for previous to opening my business. So they'd probably had about a 30%, if not bigger, downturn in trade, cost blowouts, those sorts of things. And I'd successfully run multiple venues for that group for a couple of years prior. So they sort of almost in the end asked for a favour, and the financial incentives were there. So I went back and did that, and then transitioned straight into my teaching role.
Yeah, cool. So how long was you with them for before you went into your teaching role?
So 16 weeks. Back for in the end. Yeah. So, and in that time, it was basically a case of revisiting all the processes, supplier agreements, ordering arrangements, storing, staffing, rostering, and then recruiting, training someone to then take over the role that I would leave behind.
So it was pretty much just get some fresh eyes in there, realise what needs to change, cost savings and all that kind of jazz.
Pretty much just going back to what's changed since you've left because we were running good costs and those sorts of things, and business needs to evolve. It didn't go back to exactly what I was doing before I left, but we were able to use some of those foundations and structures to be able to say, well, here you go, this is a benchmark that you can work from, and here's a list of KPIs that I set my team, through those busy periods to try and address. Let's go back down this path. Let's create some ownership and some excitement back within the staff, that there's reward for them to hit these benchmarks too, not just roll up to work and get smashed for 12 hours a day.
So what kind of benchmarks would you be setting in the kitchen for your staff to hit, kind of thing?
Okay, so part of my arrangements were always based around KPIs and cost points. So if, for instance, we had a negotiated agreement that the total food cost should be 28%, all right? Anything I'm under that, I want a 50-50 split with you. All right, so if we're running at 24%, we're 4% under. I'm 2% of that turnover. But I would always use that as incentives for my staff. So that never actually went straight to my pocket. That went into a little kitty and became a team building sort of fund. That could be a cash bonus to staff at Christmas, or it could be cash bonus when they were going on holidays. So heading on holidays, you go, here you go, here's a couple $100 to...
So how is your staff controlling cost of food though?
Okay, so ordering processes. Although, yes, the final orders came through us with the team, the size we were, and the venue turnover we are. So we were doing about 55 to 65,000 a week in food revenue out of the one venue, and there was 3 all up. So ordering processes, each section or section head was responsible for basically telling me what they needed in their ordering processes. I would review that and put the orders through. Wastage accounts. Can you come up with ways to create use or secondary uses of products to minimise any waste that's in your section? So that could then be involved with new menu development, specials, those sorts of things. So with all those sorts of things, if the team's working together and bringing down, well, then they get the reward as well.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm just a believer of trying to share that load. They take some of the pressure off me, and I share some of the fruits with them, I guess.
It gives them a bit of a responsibility as well.
It's a bit of ownership too. They feel like they're making a difference. They're not just a number that comes in, clocks on a timesheet, signs off, goes home and gets a pay packet. There's a bit of a feeling that you can make a difference, and the skills that you can learn from this will also create career pathways for you. So I had, through my career, a number of my sort of second chefs or even chef de parties that have gone on to then run other kitchens because I've helped them develop those skills while they've been there with the support of someone.
Yeah, they're not just cooking.
Saying, right, off you go. You know, if you've got a better career opportunity and advancement, no hard feelings. Just give me the suitable notice to get someone in and train up. And absolutely. Half the time that happens and you cross paths and you're working together somewhere down the track again anyway because you've got that mutual respect. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So once you jumped into it being a teacher, how did you find that compared to being a chef?
Very eye-opening to start with. Huge change for me, especially in persona. Like I've always been, I like to think, a fairly caring or compassionate person. I love watching people grow and develop. But going from a kitchen or from a hospitality establishment where, let's be pretty blunt, especially through, I started in the 90s and then through the 2000s, it's a pretty blunt, hostile environment, to then going into a governed educational facility. So the way I spoke, addressed people, all those sorts of things was something that I had to make conscious changes.
Yeah.
And, for instance, I'm a person that uses profanities quite a lot. Good or bad, as people say, but I do tend to swear quite a bit. And obviously that's not suitable in those environments. So you've got to make sure you're processing what you're discussing or what you're saying. Working with internationals as well, so there's a huge cultural influence and difference for me.
So could they speak English, or did
Yes.
you? Yep.
Yes, they all had to be able to speak a certain level of English, but it's still an English second language. It's not necessarily fluent, and you could be having broken conversations at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, hugely eye-opening to me. What I thought I would struggle with early actually became something that I really enjoyed. So it grew on me very quickly. I built some fantastic friendships with other staff, but staff from a whole array of backgrounds and cultures as well. And it gave me a chance to go in and practice honing my skills every day as well, because you're there demonstrating, developing. So you're getting that opportunity to fine-tune your repertoire, I suppose you'd say.
Yeah, cool. So the main people that you were teaching, were they like for kitchen hand, like basic level jobs, or you went all the way through?
We went all the way through. So we taught right the way through to advanced diploma. So at the advanced diploma level, final stages, we'd have students presenting multi-million-dollar business plans. We'd have a board in. We'd have lending managers from banks. We would have financial brokers. We would have entrepreneurs. There'd be teaching staff, and they had to basically pitch a viable business plan to us to be able to be signed off on completion. There were that stages through, so they could come out with a Cert 3 in cookery and leave. So that would basically give them, although it gives them that cook's qualification, they didn't have the industry-based experiences. So it would set them up to go and work as kitchen assistants, kitchen hands, and
Work
gain
their
those,
way, yeah.
gain those additional on-the-job experiences.
Yeah, cool. So how long did you do that for?
So I spent 3.5 years at the first establishment, and then when I moved on from there, I was there for just over 3 years as well. So I spent nearly 7 years in that sector in Melbourne before I moved over here.
Yep. And then did you jump straight into teaching again over here, or did you?
Okay, so I won't mention any names here, but when I did come here, I did a few short stints, so trials, I suppose you'll say, in some kitchens, food venues. Pretty disheartened.
So you came over and you was working as a chef?
I came over with the intention to probably get back on the tools for a while.
Yep.
People sort of call it cliche, but one of the selling points to me in the end to actually agreeing to come was that I've always said Tasmania's got the best produce in the world. So the opportunity to come and actually play with that was one of those factors from a professional point that sort of sparked some interest. But when I got here, I found that not too many places were actually utilising that fresh produce in the way that I foresaw it should be used, and made a decision fairly quickly that I was going to step away from that idea and go back into the training sector and utilise my my training skills. And it just sort of came across that there was an opportunity to take over or take on a business that was in that field, but was in the first aid and emergency response field. So,
what did you need to, like? Did you need to do courses to be able to teach that, or did you have teachers to teach that for you?
I already had all the qualifications to do it. Funnily enough, I grew up with, that's the field that my dad was involved in. Yeah, so I'd been out on field medicals and all those sorts of things since I was probably about 12 years old. So I'd always been involved. I had all my first aid quals. I had my teaching or my training assessment quals. I delivered first aid and things like that back in Melbourne as part of programs that I was involved in. But initially speaking, I saw my role to run and drive the business. I did have at one stage up to about 8 teaching staff working for me across the state. But as the regulations in the training sector changed and the way that Auspice or third-party arrangements became governed and all those sorts of things, I pretty much scaled it back down over a period of a couple of years to myself and a couple of contractors that were delivering the training. But yeah, we had a pretty wide reach through Tasmania. There was, look, 1 year there, I think we did about 3,500 students in the year. So when you're looking from a short course perspective, that was quite a hefty number.
Yeah, so you done that for like quite a few years when you first came over to Tasmania.
I did. So I officially took over that business in the back end of 2012, and it would have been July 2017 that I officially signed the papers over to another company that took over the management of it.
Yeah, right. So then, what was your next venture after that one? Like,
I already had signed a contract to teach with TAFE.
Yeah, cool.
So I was out there casual, and basically once I'd said to them, okay, now my other external commitments have lightened up a little bit, I sort of started to move more to being full time there. Yeah. So this year I'm full time there. Last year I was on a 0.8, which sort of worked for the organisation, but worked for me as well because I was still running some consultancy based stuff on the side, which obviously with COVID last year threw all sorts of spanners in the works. I made a conscious decision at the start of COVID to pull out and not offer those consultancy services because I got a lot of inquiries very quickly over guidance with COVID restrictions, and it was such a changing and evolving space that
it was changing nightly.
I just didn't want to be the one that someone was holding on to every word I'd said, and potentially I missed something in a news break that happened 2 hours ago while I was writing this report to submit to you. So, being an area that no one really knew anything about, I just sort of sat back and went, you know what, I'm just going to stay at home. I was lucky enough that I had work, paid work still through that period. I was delivering a lot of Zoom-based or online learning materials, writing assessment materials, those sorts of things. So,
how did you find going to Zoom meetings and classes and that via internet?
Didn't worry me. I guess through my background, I've had a bit of experience with the international stuff, with delivering some online-based programs as well. So the technology impact didn't really bother me on that sense. Where it becomes difficult is trying to get your cohort to get on board.
Yeah.
A lot of them were very sort of, no, I don't want to do it this way. And I could completely understand that, but it's either you do it this way or we don't get it done. You know, we're in that situation where the control's taken out of our hands, which I think was the biggest issue for a lot of people. You know, we all like to have control to a point over our destiny, and when that was taken away, there were some interesting behaviours from people through that period from a learning perspective. Some got in and got well ahead because the opportunities were there. Others just not even looking at it until we go back to a normal world, so to speak. So
right. Yeah. So what other ventures do you have? Like, so obviously you wasn't just teaching the whole time. Did you do any other projects or anything like that on the side?
Yeah, absolutely. So I get picked on a lot by my friends and family for someone that always has too much on the go. But so another passion of mine, and it's now into a business of mine as well, has always been martial arts. So I've been tied up in various different forms of martial arts since I was a little kid. I was introduced to taekwondo and judo by my dad. From there, as I sort of grew up and the typical teenage boy thing, wanted to be a bit rougher and tougher and those sorts of things, I moved more into boxing and kickboxing and those sorts of styles. I spent a number of years, well, from 18 onwards actually, for probably 10 years moonlighting on and off doing security. So I did a range of private security, so I held a private escort or bodyguard license for a while as well. But I did do nightclub-based work as well. Through that, though, it opened up an opportunity. I ended up teaching with a security company and doing some, what would you say, open hand restraints and those sorts of things. So I've always had a pathway involved in it. I've competed in a range of different martial arts. I came to Tassie in 2012. 2013, I thought as a sort of a way of socially getting back involved in the community. I went and got involved with a local club, TFK Jiu-Jitsu, Lionel Daly, if you're out there, hello. But started out there with just for a bit of fun. I was going to be sort of a corner man, work with cuts, that sort of stuff. That progressed to doing a little bit of sparring. It then sort of came out that I actually did have martial arts in my background. I'd sort of left that out of the conversation to that point. Started doing a bit of training, and that just sort of sparked that, that energy again and that want to do it. And by 2015, I was back competing. So
when you say competing, what was you competing in?
So it would have been February 2015. I competed on the Vela card over at Albert Hall in Launceston. Against a gentleman called Tyson Melanson, who, much to his credit, took me out pretty quickly. But that's the fight game. That's just the way it happens. One wrong move there. Unfortunately, from there, I competed in some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments. As I was preparing and warming up for another Vela card, towards the back end of 2015 down in Hobart, I actually tore the adductor off my hamstring and was medically removed from the fight. Now, at that time, I was in a pretty dark place personally. I'd pretty much utilised that, that fight camp or that preparation to keep me on track and give me a focus point. So when that happened prior, it was probably the starting point for me of a pretty big downward spiral. Suffered with a black dog very badly. So I walked away from the sport entirely for a good couple of years. It was sort of...
so when was this that you walked away?
2016.
Yeah.
So out altogether. It was just... When I say I was out altogether, it took me probably 6 months before I made that decision. I tried to come back a couple of times and sort of start to train. But the injury that I'd had was very restrictive, and it took away a couple of what I felt were my strengths, and that was in flexibility and speed of movement on my feet. And because of the headspace that I was in, I couldn't bring myself to adapt and look at things from a bigger picture, which is what I needed to be able to do. So yeah, I walked away, had nothing to do with it. Basically got out of sport altogether for nearly 12 months. Put on a lot of weight, felt lazy, got down on myself even more, all those sorts of things. So one thing's led to another, and I'm back involved in the sport these days. I took over the boxing facility that's out the back of the farmers market area in Burnie, the old Ivanhoe Showground site. In December, we're about to go through a rebrand and a relaunch process, but at the moment we're running boxing fitness style classes out there, with plans to progress pretty shortly into some other areas of targeted fitness, but also into mixed martial arts training. So that sort of side of things gives me my outlet and helps keep me sane. So yeah, that's sort of, I guess, been involved in my life all the way through, on and off. I haven't been fully committed to it all the way through, but I've always had some sort of connection or dealing.
So how long ago was it that you took over from the boxing club out there?
December. So it was a decision. The handover was done at Christmas.
Yep.
Yeah. So pretty new venture for us at this stage. Been really well supported by the locals and the members that were there. Some old connections that have come back in as well. And
so how many members did you have when you took over?
Look, it's sort of hard to say because it's up and down, but there would have been probably about 35 people training out there, I guess, at that stage.
Yep.
Did a tally up the other day. I think we've got about 60, just over 60 out there at the moment.
So do you reckon that's the change of direction that you're going in, or you've just, the changes have inspired people to come over? Or
I think there's a little bit to it. I think change is something that sparks people's to be inquisitive, I suppose. They want to see what's happening, what the changes are. Some of those that have come back, I have connections with, so they know, I guess, who I am and what I'm doing. Same as the two trainers, Lenny and Andrew, that are in there helping me. They used to train out of the same gym as well, so they've got really good relationships there. So I think that people-driven part is a part of it. I guess some new energy and seeing that we've got goals that we're looking to achieve. The previous owner, just unfortunately, his health had deteriorated to a point he couldn't put the energy in that he'd wanted to or had done previously. So it had sort of started to de-escalate a little bit. So it was just trying to re-pick up that momentum and show that there was drive again going forward and certainty going forward.
so the new rebrand that's coming, is that to change the direction or to branch out into other venues?
So it's going to change direction. It's going to make a little bit more of a statement. At the moment, we are B&J Boxing Club. We're moving into fueled fighting and fitness. So we're trying to send a statement that we're not just going to be a boxing club. We're going to get into various elements of combat. I mean, long term, I've got plans to introduce kids martial arts, women's self-defense. There's a whole range of things that I'd like to bring in. But I'm very aware with time commitments, for one, and secondly, I want to make sure each step is done properly rather than trying to overload too many different things and finding that everything's just running at a half-assed measure.
So how did you come to the realisation that you wanted to take this on, like having a full-time job and other commitments? Like, how did you think that you'd be able to find the time to do all this?
I still don't have the answers as to where I'm going to find the time. Why did it happen? Okay, so I've always had an interest in running a centre along this line. So I've always said, for lack of better words, and it sounds probably more brutal than I want it to, but I've always wanted to have a fight gym. That old forge some warriors, have some fun, build a culture, and I guess put adage to the old stigma that to run a fight club, you're a meathead. Like, it's some of the best relationships and best mateships that I've developed have come through martial arts, and some of them have been against guys that I've just fought with. Like, there's an element of respect in there. So that's, I guess I guess that's part of the drive for me. But the rebrand as well is to start a clear direction, and a new beginning. So we'll pay homage to the past. So there'll be photo walls and things of the history. But I think it's just time to take new steps forward.
Do you reckon that's because, like, with the, say, for example, like UFC and all that, like, it's made MMA, like, more mainstream and popular than, like, it's the new kid on the block and everyone is interested in that rather than go back to boxing?
Yes and no. Boxing has lost probably its following a little bit in the rise of MMA over the last few years. Mixed martial arts scene in Tassie really boosted a few years ago. It's sort of, I guess, lowered a little bit again over the last couple of years. Now, part of that's out of anyone's control in the sense that you couldn't run combat training, you couldn't put on shows, any of those sorts of stuff through COVID. So it left a lot of uncertainty there. There's a lot of money outlaid in fight sport promotion that isn't necessarily returned as well. So there was a lot of aspects on that to consider, but I think having been in the scene, a big driving part for me is to try and help create, and I want to work with other clubs. I'm not interested in the politics or any of those sorts of it. I want to work with other clubs and help drive the martial arts scene in Tasmania to be stronger. I want to be able to see teams travel to the mainland and stick it to the mainlanders, because we are looked down upon a little bit as that smaller, that smaller little state down the bottom here that doesn't have the resources to compete. But we've actually got some of the best, the best fighters in the country, and down here at the moment. So,
do you reckon they'll all end up leaving though, to follow like a better career? Or
yes and no. Look, a few of the guys, particularly some of the guys from down Hobart that were successful, have left, but they've come back. So they've sort of gone and picked up skills and other things elsewhere, and they've come back because in our scene, in that fight scene, you're flying fighters around, you're travelling, so it's not as important where you're stationed as to the show you can put on, I guess.
So is the competitions over here, like, are they big enough to keep the good fighters and get good fighters to come over, or they're still a bit like mediocre compared to the mainland tournaments?
From a financial perspective, we're probably still a bit behind. We can't draw the crowds to the fight shows that you can in some of the bigger cities. I remember being over in Melbourne myself, and you fight on a local fight show, but then you could go and have a bout at somewhere like Melbourne Pavilion, and there's thousands of people there. So there's money in it for the promoters there. Here, there was the rise and fall of Vela. Anyone that was tied up in that scene knows the reasons behind it. I won't get involved in that side of it too much, but it was a fantastic platform and promotion while it was there. There was two people integral to starting that. One whose name I won't mention. The other one, Phil McNally, I think did a fantastic job at being at the forefront of giving Tasmanian fighters that platform, which others have taken on from now. So you've got guys like Hamish McLaren down in Hobart, All Styles Grappling. They also do caged fights, etc. Abaddon's Legions, you got Legion Fight Sports, which is primarily based out of Launceston. Fantastic promotion as well. But as far as attracting and bringing guys over from the mainland, the big name fighters, we don't see a lot of that here because we don't really have the money to splash for that purpose. It's really about developing Tasmanians and creating a name for them to be provided with those opportunities to go interstate or even overseas.
So do you reckon it's pretty much like we're building them up to go and fight somewhere else rather than get the fight that they need here?
Yeah, to a point. Yep, going to have to travel for those fights, but it doesn't matter where you're stationed. You could be living in Sydney and it's still going to be the same boat. You'll probably get more higher end fights around Sydney, but you're still going to have to do the whole Melbourne, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Toowoomba, Perth, South Australia. Depends who you're fighting. It's and it depends where the promotion's running.
And do you reckon any of the mainland promotions will come over here for a one-off show or anything like that?
Feasibly, yes, feasibly. I think there's been talk in the past, and it didn't end up eventuating. I know Valor tried to come from Tassie to the mainland, so they put on one show in Melbourne and one in Brisbane. So yeah, look, there's potential for it. I'd like to see it, to be honest, but time will tell.
So at your gym at the moment, say for example your MMA fighters that you've got there training, what are they training for?
Okay, so our MMA program hasn't really started at this point in time. We've got a couple that have come from that background, so they're still at the moment on conditioning and stand-up programs until we progress a little bit further into our MMA programs. What are they training for? At the end of the day, combat.
So are they just training to be the best fighter they can, but they're not actually training for an event at the moment?
At the moment, no. So at the moment, we haven't earmarked any of our guys for set events. We've got our eyes on some potential cards towards the back end of this year that are an option. But yeah, I certainly can't say anything more than that because we haven't even spoken with the promotions and those sorts of things yet about the fighters. I need to see more from them yet before we're willing to put them in that situation. So we're the new kids on the block, and I've made it pretty clear to all the guys training, or I shouldn't say guys, girls and boys training in the gym, that if they have intent for combat, being the new kids on the block, we're going to give away experience. All right? We're not going to give away heart. We're not going to give away fitness. So we're going to really push to make sure that they're in good shape and mentally ready for that challenge before we just put them out there for the sake of seeing how it goes.
So do you have people that are just training to say box just because they like boxing, but they don't actually want to go into a fight?
Majority of our clientele. Yeah. So I have a little summary that I've sort of said from a business perspective. For every 100 people that walk through my front door, 10 will make it into our ring. 1 will make it from my ring to the next person's ring. So that's basically out of every 100 people that walk in, 1 will go on and compete. Yeah. 10 will train.
And is that because
and 90 of them will do nothing but use it as fitness and exercise and those sorts of things. And I think that's fantastic as well. It's boxing and or even mixed martial arts. Any of those martial arts based fitnesses are fantastic ways to maintain general fitness, as well as be, it provides that, I suppose, that dopamine production in the brain, that feel good scenario that people get from exercise. And over a period of time, hopefully that's self-belief and a bit of confidence too, that they can actually look after themselves if it comes to it.
So do you guys hold classes or anything out there at the moment, or are you looking into doing that? What do they call it? Boxercise, is it?
Yeah, so very similar. Boxercise trademark, so we can't call it that. But boxing fitness, Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings at 9:30. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings at 5:30. We run a boxing technique, so it's more about fundamentals of boxing, technique, striking, body positioning, weight transfers, all that sort of stuff.
So for example,
on a Wednesday, 5:30 on a Friday.
For your box fitness, is that just a whole class of people beating on each other, or is it punching bags or punching the air? How is that?
For boxing fitness, there's no hitting each other than through the use of, your focus pads, mitts, that sort of stuff. It's a whole range of things. So our boxing fitness programs run everything from core work, so groundwork where you'll be working with medicine balls, kettlebells. We've got battle ropes out there. We've got punching mitts, punching bags, sandbags for weights. There is weights out there as well. So there's a whole range of things. It's really a fitness conditioning based program.
And do you guys have like one-on-one classes and that available out there as well?
We're open to discussion. We're not running one-on-ones at the moment, and that's been more time and availability and those sorts of things. When I say we don't run them, we've got a couple of boxes that have come back into training that we are doing a little bit of one-on-one, just trying to fast-track them. They're previous competitors that, just trying to, I suppose, work their way back into it. But yeah, it is open for discussion. But at the moment, we just run our hour-long group fitness classes. Currently, we're running a no sign-up membership fee deal, and it's $10 casual rate to come and train for an hour. So we're trying to make it affordable, non-committed.
So do you have to go and like participate in the class, or can you just go out there and punch a shit out of a punching bag?
At the moment, we're primarily class-based. But on the same boat, sort of if someone wants to pop out, punching bag, then flick us a message. We can probably sort that out too. Myself or the others are often out there outside of those class times, and so come in for half an hour and let some frustration out, or whatever the case may be. Then look, we can look at something like that. Down the track, there is potential that we're going to look at opening at certain times just for what we'll call freestyle training, so people can come in and do their own thing, but we haven't scheduled that at this stage.
Yeah, cool.
All of us that are training there all work full-time elsewhere, so we've all got kids as well. So we're just trying to find that balance at the moment where it's sustainable as well.
Yep.
I talked with someone the other day about opening up Saturday mornings, and I said, look, I can do it at the moment, but then other commitments come up a little bit later. I don't want to then be taking it away. So we're just trying to make sure that our programs are going to be sustainable, and people that do make adjustments to their own lifestyles to commit to train, aren't going to be mucked around too much.
Yeah, nice. So pretty much your life is educate other people and help people with their fitness and all that kind of stuff. So do you have any hobbies in that actually like help you, or is that your hobby?
That's probably more my hobby, actually. I like to see growth in people. So for every person that's better today than they were yesterday, and better this week than they were last week, and those so on and so forth, there's reward enough in that. I guess for me, I grew up in a fairly strict upbringing, and don't get me wrong, I have a pretty good relationship with my family these days, but it was probably very strained for a number of years, and I got into my apprenticeship early. So I was 15 when I started my apprenticeship, which might not sound like a lot to our Tasmanians in Year 10, but in Melbourne, to be leaving during Year 10 to go and do an apprenticeship was a dropout. I was looked at sideways and all those sorts of things. So for me, I was lucky enough that through that period when I started to go off the rails a little bit, or go down the wrong pathways in life with people and choices, that there were people around me that provided that mentorship, pulled me back into line and those sorts of things. And I guess I've just always had that in the back of my mind that I'd like to make that impact for other people as well. I spent my summer coaching cricket clubs and things like that as well, because I like to see those opportunities, particularly with the junior development stuff. So I spent this summer tied up with the under 12 kids down at Burnie, and a lot of people sort of say, "Geez, with your commitments, that was another big chunk of time to go." And I said, "Yeah, but it made my Sundays fun because I got to spend a couple of hours watching those kids run around laughing and having fun." So, you make a little bit of a difference, an impact in life. I think if more of us did that, the world would be such an easier place to live.
So did you find, like, when you started your apprenticeship earlier, do you reckon it jumped your like maturity level ahead, like say 5 years in like 2 years?
Absolutely it did. Probably for the first 6 months, maybe not so much. I think for the first 6 months, it was probably, in all honesty, I feel a bit for the guys I was working with. Yeah, an immature school kid, really. But they were pretty good at sort of providing that direction and sort of saying to me, "That's fine. You can do the fun stuff as long as you're doing, the other bits that come with life. You can't just sort of pick and choose what you're going to do. That's not how life works." They instilled a work ethic in me very quickly. So that's something I've always been grateful for. I've spent most of my life working 2 and 3 jobs because to me that's normal.
Do you think that people these days go to school for too long? And that's because I myself, like with staff, that there's not much of a work ethic, and like just like stuff they're doing when they're 18, 19, I was doing when I was 16.
I don't know that they go to school for too long, and I'm going to be really careful here because I am actually employed by the Department of Education. But outside of, referring to it from a Tasmanian perspective, just in general, I think our education system's missed the mark on some really key life skills. So I've always been an advocate that things such as taxations, loan and loan interests, and all those sorts of things should be taught, as I believe that there should be workplace-based commitments that come in much earlier in life for these school kids so they learn, whether it's 1 day a week, is done in a workplace.
Well, so I was in like a naughty class in grade 9. We all got selected in grade 8. There was like, I don't know, 10 or 11 of us.
Yeah.
And that was because I thought school was boring, it was bullshit. I didn't need to learn science and that.
Yeah.
And they actually said, all right, what do you want to get a trade in? And we picked a trade, and then that's all we learned. And it was actually got a work placement 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And I actually got an apprenticeship out of it halfway through grade 9. So I was only 14 when I started my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And I just think like I lost a lot of mates and friends over that because they were out partying and smoking darts out the front of Kmart while I was working a 40-hour week. So, but I look back now and I wouldn't take that back because it's advanced me. But now, like you look at people and they're like 21, like still going to school, but it's undirected school. Like they're not going to school to learn to say be a chef or a boilermaker or a builder. They're going to school just to go to school.
There's too many pathways that allow that to happen. In my opinion, that more comes back down to our welfare system, to be honest. You can keep claiming your New Start allowance or whatever they're called nowadays, as long as you're studying for X amount of hours. So I think there's flaws in the system. I don't have an issue with the additional learning, but I think we do need to be aware of driving that work ethic. I'm trying to pick my words here and not turn around and say, millennials are lazy or any of those sorts of things, because I don't believe in stereotyping. There's certainly exceptions to it. But as the generations have gone on, I think each generation there's more of an education than a work focus, but the education focus isn't probably where it needs to be in the right areas, I suppose.
So how do we fix that? Like not only as teachers like yourself, but as employers.
Look, it's a complete overhaul, and people have to start working together. So it's got to start at an earlier age, in my opinion. So I think in high school they really need to be doing, like you said, year 8 they started pinpointing. I think that's the sort of right area where you do start to lose a percentage of students at that stage, that whether it's through adolescence or, all those sorts of things that's starting to develop, they're not interested. And we need to find a way to engage them and teach them those life skills that can at least help them out down the track. From an employer's perspective, it's really difficult to answer that, because I'm a big believer for, apprenticeships, traineeships and those sorts of things. But as an employer myself, I've also had some incredible difficulty in finding the right fits. And when I say that, I mean, I can teach you any skill I need you to do in my workplace. It's really hard for me to change your attitude that you walk in the door with. So that, I think, happens before us as employers.
Well, I've found that the one attitude that I hate, and everyone's trying to like embrace it, is as long as you do the best you can, that's enough.
But unfortunately, that's a school-based learning system. It's not life.
Yeah, and I think
Life doesn't let you get away with. So you're a pizza truck. You burn every pizza that you serve, but that's the best you can. You're not going to run a successful business.
Yeah,
are
that's
you?
exactly right.
People aren't going to come and pay for it. So again, I think that's where it winds back the clock, and it's being taught those fundamentals earlier. And I think it comes down to parents need to be harder on their own kids.
Not only that, like
We're
where's
not
your
just there to be mates with our kids. We're there to provide them guidance. You know,
where's
my
your
son's my best mate. You know, he's about turned 12, but on the same boat. I'm probably harder on him than I am anybody else as far as showing respect and having a pathway to go forward. You know, so
yeah. Well, I always say to my missus, like, our job isn't to be their friends. Our job is to turn them into the best person possible, kind of thing. So like, they might hate us for it now, but later in life they're like, oh, they've really set me up.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Where do you sit on the whole cutting awards and firsts and seconds and thirds and that out of kids' sports?
Honestly, I don't agree. I don't think everyone should just have a participation certificate. There's winners and losers in life, and driving forces to be better and have things to aim for, I think, are important. I think that there's got to be consideration to, and without this sounding the wrong way, there's got to be consideration to the kid that always finishes last, because that can be demoralising as well. But on the same boat, I think it's how we handle and achieve those things. I might finish last at one task, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be exceptional at the next. You know, we all have our strengths and weaknesses.
Not only that, like,
The sooner in life we can identify our strengths and weaknesses, the better off we're going to be later.
yeah, but not only that, like, if you come last, right, and you get the exact same as award as who came first. If first place, say for example, runs 10-minute time and last place runs an hour time, the 10-minute time is going to blow out to a 20-minute time, because he's like, I don't need to go faster because I'm going to get the same award. So not only is it going to push people to be better, it might actually push people to be less better.
Yeah. And that's it, because you lose that driving.
It's like, what's the point?
Yeah. People like recognition.
Yeah, and you have to have it, because other people, like last place needs to be like, I really want to get up there to first place. But if everyone gets the same, then what the fuck are they going to do?
It's like the old Employee of the Month award for your employees, isn't it? And you think, oh, that's prestigious, and then you work for a company that says, yeah, but you can't give it to the same person twice. You
Yeah.
And you go, it's not an Employee of the Month award, you know. It's lost its prestige straight away. I'd rather walk in and see the same bloke on the board 6 times in a row and go, well,
He's a superstar.
we know he's gunning for the best that he can be.
I actually tried that in my pizza shop when I had the 2 shops, and the funny thing was, I know this sounds bad, but one month everyone was just fucking shit.
And you couldn't give one out.
I actually gave it out to my oven. Like, I took a picture of the oven, put up a big Facebook post and said the oven's passed and how it's never let me down and all this. And that went across, like, some people were like, oh, that's a bit shit. But it's like, well, the oven performed every day how I wanted it to perform. It didn't do better. It didn't do worse. It just done exactly how I wanted it to perform.
Yeah, that's it. Consistency.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Until they break down, then they're a headache. But
Yeah, I've actually gone through 3 ovens, I think, and they're not fucking cheap when they break down. My ones from my Bernie store I actually got from the mainland, and I had them up on for sale for Gumtree for ages, and no one wanted them.
Yeah.
And I thought, fuck, do I give them away or do I throw them away? I thought if I give them away, I'm giving some of my competition. So I decided to throw them away, and all I done was took a sledgehammer to their computer chips, and threw them away. And I knew that they'd be fucking, no one will replace them because they're like 20 grand just to get the computer chips fixed.
that would have been heartbreaking though, wouldn't it? And all that money just smashed up.
It was fun because I got to take the frustration out. But the other option was, like, I had them sitting in my window store for 18 months since the Bernie store shut, so they were just taking up space.
Yeah.
So to get rid of them was fuck yeah. That's because that was the last thing left of the Bernie store.
Yeah. Okay.
And once that was gone, I'm like, nah, cool. But I do have some of the Bernie store stuff in the truck.
Yeah.
But that's like the ovens were kind of pointless in the truck.
We'll have to collab one night, mate.
Yeah.
We'll have to collab one night. We'll do something a bit funky, and
We'll have to get a permit out there at the yacht club, and we'll do some pizzas with some fancy shit on them.
Yeah, we'll go out and have a play around one night, and the fishing's good or something. We'll
Yeah.
get them all on that. It's funny you say that. I said years ago, I'm a hopeless fisherman. So I'll go out there and throw the line in. Same, along the wharf there with everyone else, and they'll all be pulling in fish around me. Nah, no good. I swear I've got a scent on me or something that sends them running. But I said one day to these guys that were sitting there, and I said, bugger this. I said, I got a better idea. And he said, what? I said, I'm going to go home, throw the barbecue on the back of the car and bring it back. I said, I'll stand at the bottom of the wharf. I said, I'll fill it and cook your fish to order for you. I tell you what, I reckon I could have made a killing. There's about 30 or 40 blokes fishing off the wharf that all turned around and said, we'd pay you to do that. I was like, not today, but the council that love that one.
Yeah, the problem is like you'd have to clean it all and shit as well for them.
That's it. Good fun. But yeah, no, it's as you say though, it's hard with staff to you can get some brilliant stuff, but then when you do, they're always on the hit list for someone else too, aren't they? You're always trying to appease them.
Not only that, when you get a really good staff member, they make the rest of your staff look like shit.
Yeah.
Like you go, fuck, why can't I have 5 of this person?
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
So
you're thinking if I don't need 5 if they all work like that, I'll only need 4 and I can pay you all better. Like it's
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, like I've worked out, depending on who you hire, like you kind of need 2 people to do a one person job now. Where if you get the right people, like I've had times in Wynyard where that shop was running on 2 people, me and someone else, me and a delivery driver, and that was it.
Yeah.
Because they were the right people. And then same night I've had 4 or 5 people on, and it's performed worse than when it was just me and the other person.
Yeah. Staff has such a huge impact on businesses, viability, performance, the whole lot.
Do you know, I've never once met a business owner that we've talked about staff and they're like, yeah, I really like staff. Like as soon as you bring up the staff thing, it just fucking snowballs. Like, fuck staff, fuck this, they're fucking useless.
Look, I've had some really good staff along the journey, and some really poor staff. But I've got to say that I've been lucky in having some good staff and some good crews. But the damage that the bad ones have done too,
Yeah.
can be pretty crucifying.
It makes you hate people. Like the reason I've done this is because I turned to hate everyone. And the reason I started this podcast was to converse with people that actually had drive and ambition and just I didn't hate.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, look, it's good to. I've listened to a few of the podcasts, and you've had a nice varied range of people.
Yeah, it's hard.
Backgrounds, experiences. Be honest, when you reached out and asked me if I was interested, I was like, what the hell have I got to offer? But it was like, it'd be good to go have a chat and just see where it goes,
Yeah, well, the best thing is, like, it's not, like, I wouldn't give a fuck if no one listened to this, but the best thing is, like, it's a way to be like, hey, man, do you want to come on my podcast and have a chat without being weird? And, like, you imagine if I was just like, hey, man, do you want to come around to my house and talk? Yeah. Or it's someone that you've never met before, you'd be like, who the fuck's this?
Yeah. Is there free beer involved? I'd probably still come.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the sell. Like, they're like, hey, free drink, cool. But it's hard to find people as well to get on that isn't, like, in the public, like, so business owners and stuff like that, because the other people are harder to find and they're less, I don't know, like they don't want to speak up and come out, but some of them have a really good story, but the harder thing is to find that, because I don't want it to just all be business owner kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I want people with different experience and life experience and that.
Yeah, no, that's it. And it's like that. I mean, a couple of the guests you've had on already, I know, on personal levels, obviously Babs, my former barber, and Ken Dorsey, I've known for a number of years. Actually used to do some work for Ken. Yep. So there's a range of people. I've met Craig Garland before. Really really committed and switched on guy. So it's really good to see that different perspective of people too.
Yeah,
I suppose,
it's
when
exactly
you get
right.
to sit them down and have a chat and go, hang on, that's a little bit different to the image that I've seen of you, or whatever the case may be.
Well, the best thing is, like, I'm a big believer of, if you don't tell your own story, someone else will tell it for you, and it won't be the truth.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, I'm really closed-minded, so this has helped me to learn from other people's perspective, why they do what they do, and then, because that's the only way that I'd listen. Like, if someone says, yeah, I done this, and this, and it didn't work, I'm like, all right, cool. But if someone that I didn't know or speak to said that, I'd be like, fuck off, mate. Like, that's you doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. It is like that. And I've had successes in my life, yeah, but the failures of what's driven me to have the success, if that makes sense.
That's exactly right. So
Been around the wrong people, invested my money in the wrong areas, trusted the wrong people, all those sorts of things that I could go on again for hours in those sides of the stories. And I guess through all that, though, I've learnt to try over the last few years in particular, learnt to try and not put blame on other people. At times, it was probably part of my depressive periods and stuff like that I went through. Part of it's probably putting blame and fault back on myself in areas that could be arguable whether I had control or not. But at the end of the day, I do believe that the destiny's in your own hands. We make the decisions, we put ourselves in situations, those sorts of things. So from adversity comes learning, and obviously I'm in an education realm for life. I do believe in lifelong learning, and I don't believe lifelong learning comes out of books or reading computer screens. I think the best learning is lived learning, by being in situations, by learning from what you do and those around you as well. Don't make the same mistake the person next to you did.
have you ever had a situation where your student, like, you've been showing your student how to do something and they've been like, hey, why don't you do it this way? And you're like, fuck, why don't I do it that way?
Absolutely. More than once. Yeah. Yeah. And I always say to them in that situation, I'm no better than you. I've just got a set of skills and experiences that are respected to be able to teach. There's still gaps in my armoury. Absolutely there is. So, but one comes out really clearly. I remember, and this goes back to working with international students, and we were doing a really nice showpiece display. So we're actually carving fruit, right? And we're carving these watermelons. We made a dragon. We've done all these other things and blah, blah, blah. And trying to use the knives and all the rest of it. And one of the students comes up to me and he says, I brought this today, chef. Can I show you how to do it better? And I looked at him and he's got a set of clay carving tools in his hands. Now, he was into pottery and all those sorts of things back in his home country. Now, he smashed out this beautiful display piece, quarter of the time that I could have done it, and executed to a better fine detail. And I've just looked at him and I said, righto, so the workshop that's coming up in 3 weeks where we've got the public coming in, I said, can you actually come and do that for me? Like, I'm quite happy to stand here and I'll follow your lead. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had apprentices that have qualified that I've gone and worked for.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so
It's funny, when I was an apprentice, I used to go, like, I always think about the easy, better solution, and I used to make my own tools because I was a boilermaker, so I could like cut shit up and make spanners and that.
Yeah.
And it started off with the older tradesmen like, you can't fucking do that. No, that's not going to work. Rah, rah, rah. And it got to the point where I had this little box that sat beside my toolbox, and it was all just fucking shit that's my tools that I made for specific tasks. Yeah. And it got to the point where they were all coming up going, can I borrow that? Can I use that? And I'm like, no, man, like you said, it wouldn't work. Like, you fucking go and do it your way.
That's it. Yeah, no, and it is, I don't know, I think it's almost rewarding. Like, I often say, you know what, when the apprentice passes the master's done their job.
Yeah, it's exactly right.
You know?
Like, I think people think that you need to teach them to be them. Like, even like just owning the shop, like I had people come in that'll show me to do something one way and it'll be fucking bullshit. Like, they were chefs. I'm like, look, man, that's not going to work here. But then I've had like someone that's worked at KFC come in and show me and do a way, and it's like, yeah, man, like, we're going to do that. and the chef like looks down on it, but it actually works better than their idea anyway.
Yeah, and it's from establishment to establishment. You know, I've done the same things that I've done in one venue. There's no way I would do somewhere else because there's a difference in expectation of quality and all those sorts of things. But I guess it's a bit like the difference in saying, well, here's my $15 pizza. You're going to do it different if you're charging $35 for the same pizza.
Yeah.
You know, but you're going to do it different again if you're only charging $5 like Domino's does. You know, it's cheap. You get what you pay for, isn't it? You know, it's
So have you got an experience as a chef with staff, and not even as a chef, where you've got like an experience that's so fucked up no one would believe what they done? For example, I'll throw one at you while you think. I had a pizza shop manager ring me once. I was at home and he goes, "Hey man, like, it was like 20 minutes to knock off." And he goes, "Look, I've thrown all the dough out and someone's come in and they want 2 pizzas. I've only got 1 base. Can I take the dough out of the bin and make a base with it?" And I was like, are you joking, man, or are you being serious? He's like, "Yeah, no, like, I'll just take the middle bit that's been in the bin." I said, "All right, you do that. You take 2 and you make yourself a pizza too." He's like, "Fuck off, I'm not eating out of the bin." I said, "There's your fucking answer then, mate." No. And then at that point I thought common sense isn't common. Have you had like something like that's happened that you're just shocked?
There's been a few different things along the lines that I've seen people do. You know, it's crazy. But one that always stands out to me was catering for a wedding. And, you know, we were doing, I think it was nearly 600 people. Right? So there's a whole line, you know, team, we're all responsible for our own parts of the day and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we've been in the day before to start prepping, and then we've been in all that day getting ready. So first course for dinner is supposed to go out at 5:30, I think it was. 5 o'clock, no, 4:45, we'd set a team briefing. And we go through all the checklists to see where everything is. Now, we've got whole joints, right, that are supposed to have been braised. We're 45 minutes before the food's supposed to go out. All of those, and I'm talking, you know, 100 kilos of meat is still boxed up in the cool room. Chef that was supposed to put it on never even put it in the oven. So we've now turned around and gone, well, it's impossible for this to happen. Who's now going out to talk to the bride and groom and tell them that we cannot serve the menu that they've paid for lunch and for dinner, but we also don't know what the hell we're going to serve because we've just sent someone down to the supermarket to try and find enough meat to come up with something, because what can you do?
Yeah.
You know? So realistically, I think that was about a $65,000 mistake because the whole wedding had to be refunded.
So what did you work out?
What did we work out? So we went down to the supermarket and brought basically every little piece of meat we could find in the fridge displays and just cooked them accordingly when we came back. So there was tables going out with steaks, some with grilled chicken, some with fish, some with just everyone got a feed.
Just so they could eat something.
We had to, you know, like especially the alcohol and all the rest of it, you know, you've got to be able to serve food as well. But you also can't destroy the wedding. But I'm pretty sure that it was near enough the entire wedding was refunded by the venue.
So did the chef get to keep his job?
No. No, and the funny thing is like I was there as a contractor, so I was just there through an agency. So it had nothing to do with me, but I did hear or did see the report come back through the next day for staff to go out there, and they were looking for an acting head chef. They just sacked the entire crew. All gone. See you later.
Yeah, right. Oh, that is a big fuck up. So what do you know what the excuse was for that? Or was it just, I forgot, sorry?
Pretty much I forgot, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And it was sort of like, well, it's on your prep list. It's on the list there. And at briefings even last night, it was addressed that.
That's nearly like a business wrecker, isn't it?
Almost.
Like if something like that happens.
Almost. Could you imagine though, and especially if that was an air and on TripAdvisor and all those other things, the damage that it would do.
Yeah.
You're lucky that 15
As it-
years ago,
yeah,
you
you
didn't
could-
have those platforms.
especially on Facebook, like you could end up with 600 do not recommends on a business.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The power of social media can kill you so quick nowadays.
Yeah, well, it's happened to a few people, like that smoke joint that went to Upper Bernie.
Yeah.
That-
The Texas ribs one. Yeah.
It got to the point, I think it was 4 days in, and I said to my missus, I said, we're not even going to go and try that. I think it was 4 days, and they're on like a 1.1 star or something.
Yeah.
And it just, but they've got rid of stars now, so it is good and it is bad at the same time.
I did try that Texas Smokehouse in the end, but it was a fair way later for the same reason, and it's the same as the Hillcrest charcoal chicken that's opened up. You know, they got smashed at opening. There were some bad reviews. I've heard lots of good things too, but I've heard some bad reviews. I actually called in there last night at 5:45, and after waiting 15 minutes to be served, they didn't have a chicken left. And so
No.
that sort of stuff hurts you, you know, as a business.
Especially like waiting 15 minutes. Like, why don't you just say, hey guys, like, sorry, don't. Or do you reckon that was like they didn't know that they didn't have a chicken left until they've gone through their orders?
Oh no, they were just too busy. They hadn't actually taken their order. They was too busy trying to get stuff out.
Yeah.
And it didn't appear to be that busy myself. But you know, I have a bit of a different background and view on it, I suppose.
It's the systems that they have in place as well. Like, so for example, we've got all bump screens and electronic point of sale systems that keeps everything all well ordered with timers and that.
Yeah.
But I know a few times, like when the bump screen's down, you go to dockets and that, and dockets do seem a lot busier, even though it's not.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with lost dockets and stuff like that.
Yeah. Or someone going, I ordered this. Where is it?
Yeah, it's exactly right.
Yeah, no, that's it. So, yeah, I think, look, it's going to be an interesting period over the next few months. I think there's, now that the wage subsidies have stopped, I think we're going to see quite a few businesses close down.
I think we'll see a few pick up as well. So I think some will close down and some will open again, or new businesses will open. Because what happened is, a lot of people will lose their jobs, and a lot of the people then will be like, fuck it, now's the time to go and start that business I wanted to start. Like, I can't find another job, we'll just go and do that. So I reckon some will shut down and some will pick back up. But I think COVID's given some of the other businesses that wanted it out, like admirable out. Like, they're like, oh, we're shutting because of COVID. Especially the ones, like, I know some that were shutting like 3-4 weeks in. And they're like, yeah, COVID's fucked us. Surely COVID hadn't fucked you that quick.
I was going to say, you were already in trouble if it's killed you quickly.
Yeah. So I did get to a point there in the shop. So there was a point there where it was literally like 3 days. Yeah. I looked at my miss. I said, look, we've got 3 days. If things don't change, we're fucked. Yeah. And believe it or not, that night was one of the biggest nights we've ever had. Yeah. And what it was we were pretty much the only ones delivering. So our pickups dropped down to about 10% and deliveries went up to 90%. Yeah. And our onlines went to 98%. So online orders went to 98%. So you think of these people that don't have online orders set up, they would have just lost it.
Yeah, that's it. Big difference.
And you would have seen that in the industry on your side as well, wouldn't you? Like, people contacting you going, fuck, man, like, what do I do?
There was a lot of inquiries and people asking what platforms do you go to for online delivery and all those sorts of things. And there's no easy answer to that either, because
it depends what you want.
Each region is different as well, you know. Like,
see, so I went through 13 different like sources for online until I've finally found one that worked for me and was the right price and done the right things. And I was like, all right, I'll stick with that. Yeah. And then what happened was that I actually had to get rid of it because our business outgrew it.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, due to COVID, they've actually revamped it all. So now we actually fully switched back to it, like bigger and better than ever. So we actually switched over card payments and everything to this one. So it's Square. You've probably heard of Square. Yeah. So in the truck we were Square, and it kind of, when we went to the shop, it didn't have the functionalities that we needed. But then COVID's made them like ramp it all up. Yeah. And then they picked all that back up. Yeah. But I went from a $600 a month subscription to $39 a month for pretty much the exact same thing.
Yeah. Okay. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it is. Especially like the other one was add-ons on add-ons on add-ons, but this system now is all in one.
Yeah, big difference. I've been having a look at the same. So with the rebrand and the relaunch that I'll do with the martial arts side of things, we'll have. So I want to set up obviously an online presence. So we'll have a website. Through there, I want to have my booking calendars. I'm looking at potentially setting up a learning management system in there where you can actually go in and undertake some basic online tutorials. So you can do some basic striking coaching, just little basics. But, you know, if you want to punch a bag at home for fitness, here's how to stand, here's how to hold your fists, you know, those sorts of things so you don't injure yourself. So there's lots of scope these days to deliver things in different ways as well. But yeah, it'll be the same thing, and a lot of different programs and resources to look at to go, well, I didn't realise that this plugin or this app could do.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Sometimes you come across one and you find it and you turn it on and you think, fuck, why didn't I find this 2 years ago? Like, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
That's it. So it's like a booking portal used for online clients. So at the moment, I'm actually running my booking portal through Facebook because no restrictions. Calendar up, bang, hit the button, it's done. Going forward, and when we have multiple classes at a time, that gets a bit harder to do. So I'll move it. But yeah, a mate of mine said to me, he goes, so I look up a program called 10 to 8. So I jumped on there and I'm like, it's going to do exactly what I need for a booking portal. Pretty cheap, you know, it's free. Look, for a lot of people, it'd work for free. You can make 100 bookings a month through it before you got to pay for anything.
It's amazing what's out there. So 3 years ago, I came across something called KeyPay.
Yeah.
And it's got like an app where your employees can clock in, clock off, get their roster, get their pay slips and all that. And on my end, it's got the award that I've selected automatically applied to that employee.
So it calculates their wages.
So at the end of the day, all it needs to do is, if their clock on and clock off matches the roster, bang, their pay is done.
Yeah.
If there's variations, all I need to do is look at it, accept, reject, or edit, bang, their pay is done.
Yeah.
And that's tax, their pay, and super, and it's all automated, and it's $6 a month per employee.
So does that work as like your one-touch payroll? It actually sends it to the ATO for you?
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, and it actually...
Because that transition over to having to have that one-touch payroll and blah, 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 for a small operator, you know, with one employee or something like that, it's painful. You know, I was like, I looked at it and went, why do I want to pay $50 a month for zero to have that function when I actually get away with running most of my accounting off a free program off my desktop? It does everything that all the others do. I can reconcile my bank accounts. Everything can be done with it. But it goes to a paid subscription the minute you need to put a one-touch payroll onto it, which is fine. But when you're only periodically, you might have a casual one that you're going to pay, you know, once a month. It's just like, it's a pain, you know. I'd rather just be able to go tap, tap, done.
So the thing that even like upped me on this program was QuickBooks actually brought them out, and I always used to use QuickBooks.
Yeah.
So Quickbooks Employees now is KeyPay.
Yeah, okay.
So I cancelled my KeyPay subscription, and now it's included with my KeyPay, with my QuickBooks subscription. So my roster and everything is all right there on my QuickBooks.
Yeah, beautiful.
And the best thing is the staff have their own app on every phone. Check their rosters, pay slips, clock in, clock out.
Yeah.
They can apply for leave and see who's on their rosters and all, and it makes us look like a bigger business.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've never looked back. Like $6 a month's fuck all per employee to take all that off, especially in the Burnie store when I had like 18 employees. Like, it would take me 15 minutes to do the pays for 18 employees.
Yeah, that's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, and just for all these integrations, like the time it saves you, like it's nothing.
Yeah, and you got to put a cost on your own time too. You know, so if it's going to take you 2 hours to do it down to 15 minutes, what's that 2 hours worth to you? What revenue can you create in 2 hours?
Yeah.
It's not just are you worth $30 an hour. It's what can you create in that time. So
the funny thing is though, it's so automated. Sometimes my staff will have an issue. Like some of the new staff will be like, "Hey, how do I put my kilometers in?" I'm like, hey, look, sorry, ask one of the delivery drivers. I don't actually know. Or they'll be like, oh, where do I find my payslip? I was like, hey, look, sorry, I don't know, because I've spent so little time on it, I actually don't even know where shit is anymore because it's so automated. Like, I don't need to know all that.
Yeah, you just hit the reports and go, that adds up. Bang.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And the best thing was the variance with the rosters. So as soon as I found that add-on, it's literally like automated as fuck.
Yeah.
The only thing is, like, say, for example, you stay back 20 minutes, I've got to say, yes, that was me, or no, that wasn't me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
All right. Did you have anything that you think that we should have touched base on, talk about, or anything?
No, I don't reckon, mate. Like, it's good to come and have a bit of a chat. I mean, all sorts of topics we could go on about, but no, I think.
So if people wanted to sign up or follow along with your new venture, where would they find you?
Look up BJ Boxing Fitness Club on Facebook.
So how long is it going to be that for?
Look, the same page will stay anyway. We're just going to change the names and integrate it over. Look, I'm probably tipping at the moment we're a couple of months from rebrand, mainly because I've had new logos done, I've had the names registered, all those sorts of things are done. I'm actually having some clothing concepts done at the moment. Yeah, I reckon we're probably a couple of months just to get everything all lined up.
Cool.
But BJ Boxing Fitness Club or Fueled Fighting and Fitness would be the new branding. That's
And what are you running at the moment? $10 for an hour class?
$10 for a class. Class runs for an hour.
No subscriptions.
No membership fees. So, you can sort of.
So what experience, like who should come along to the classes?
Absolutely anybody that wants to come along is welcome. We have huge array of clientele. So I guess I want to debunk the theory that, it's a bunch of meatheads that want to fight. We've got some really diverse ages, there's a good mix of gender, socioeconomic employability. I've got lawyers, I've got all sorts of people in there, business owners,
Everyone.
Yeah, young fit people
So someone
that, and you don't have to be fit to come in the door. Our classes, they run for an hour, but we're happy to work with you and go, look, get through 10 minutes, sit and catch your breath, go, and then we'll do the next thing.
So it's not all just tailored for boxers, like someone that just wants to learn can come out and hang out and learn some stuff, and then someone that just wants to refine their skills.
Absolutely. If you're interested in just learning some basic fundamentals of boxing, Friday nights at 5:30 are perfect. Good array out there. We've got some younger fellas, 12, 13, just learning. I've got a couple of guys that started training with us that, thought it'd be something different, never set foot in an environment like that in their life. From the feedback they're giving me, they're loving it. And we've got some guys that are getting ready to compete. And they're more than happy to jump in and work with the beginners and that sort of stuff as well. So
do you need a book, or you can just rock up on them times and nights?
Look, ideally, if you book, it's better for us. Helps us prepare. We know who's coming, that sort of stuff. But, if you turn up out there, the chances of us turning you away is pretty slim. Yep. We do still have some COVID restrictions with our numbers and that sort of stuff. And that's where if we did happen to book out, and I'm talking, sort of 16 in a session, if we did book out, priority would go to the bookings. But most of our crew know that now. So
is it just as simple as sending you guys through a message on Facebook?
Send us a message, or if you jump on the BJ Boxing Fitness Club page, hit the book now button, the calendar will come up, pick your date, your time, and book, and you'll get a confirmation from me pretty much instantly.
All right, cool.
If you've got any questions, flick us a message. And if you're just not sure and want to come have a look, same, flick us a message. You're more than welcome to come out, catch up, say hello, have a look, and we can talk from there.
All right, perfect. Thanks for coming on today, buddy.
Thanks for having us, mate.
You have a good one.
You too.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.